Elena stepped off the bus onto the sun-warmed sand, letting her bare feet sink into the grains. The salty breeze tugged at her hair, and the rhythmic crash of waves felt like a heartbeat she hadn't heard in months. She inhaled deeply. For the first time since leaving the city, she felt space to breathe. The beach house she had rented was small, rustic, and perched on a dune overlooking the water. Inside, wooden floors creaked gently, and windows opened to panoramic views of the ocean. Elena set down her bag and walked to the shoreline. The sand stretched endlessly, dotted with shells and small tide pools reflecting the morning sky. She had come here seeking inspiration, but also an escape from the doubts that had grown in the city like weeds. Every blank canvas in her apartment had stared back at her, accusingly, and she had retreated from painting entirely. Here, she thought, the world could feel new again. She took out her sketchbook, hesitated, and drew a simple line, a wave curling over the shore. The rhythm of the ocean seemed to guide her hand. Later, as the sun sank low, she noticed unusual patterns in the sand, a series of footprints leading toward the cliffs, accompanied by intricate, almost artistic lines that twisted like abstract shapes. She bent down to examine them. They didn't look like ordinary footprints, yet no one was in sight. Curiosity pricked her heart. Tomorrow, she decided, she would follow them. Perhaps, she thought, inspiration wasn't something you found in solitude. It was something that found you. The next morning, Elena followed the sand patterns along the beach. The tide was low, exposing rocks, seaweed, and small crabs scuttling under her feet. The footprints curved gently toward a secluded cove she hadn't noticed before. There, crouched beside a tide pool, was a young man examining tiny fish and shells. His attention to detail made her hesitate before approaching. "Hi," she said softly. He looked up, startled, then smiled warmly. "You're following the sand?" he asked. "I thought I was the only one noticing." I don't know. They just seemed strange," Elena admitted. He introduced himself as Liam, a marine biologist studying the coastal ecosystem. "Some of these patterns are formed naturally," he explained, pointing to swirls in the sand, "but the tide and wind rarely create this kind of symmetry. It's almost like someone left a message." Elena felt a thrill of wonder. Perhaps this was the spark she had been waiting for. Together, they explored the tide pools, mapping shells, observing crabs, and sketching the delicate designs left by nature. The morning light danced across the water, and for the first time, Elena felt alive, present in the world rather than trapped by her doubts. By afternoon, they had walked miles along the shore, talking quietly about life, art, and the invisible stories the beach seemed to hold. Elena realized that the shoreline was not just sand and water, it was a living canvas, shaped by forces she had only begun to understand. Evenings on the beach were magical. Elena would sit on the sand as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in orange, pink, and violet hues. Liam joined her almost every evening, and the conversations grew deeper, softer, more personal. One evening, Liam pointed to the horizon. "Do you ever feel like the ocean remembers things we've forgotten?" Elena thought about the city, her abandoned paintings, the fear that had kept her silent. "I think it remembers everything, every joy, every loss, and it waits for us to notice." They shared silence, letting the waves speak instead. Then Elena pulled out her sketchbook and drew again, lines flowing more confidently than they had in months. Liam watched her, his expression unreadable. "I used to be afraid of failing," she admitted, her voice barely above the wind. "Every blank page felt like proof that I wasn't enough." "You are enough," Liam said simply. "The shore, the waves, even the footprints, they remind us that we're part of something bigger." The waves lapped at their feet, and Elena realized that the fear that had shadowed her life was dissolving, replaced by a gentle rhythm she could finally trust. On the fourth day, a sudden storm rolled in. Dark clouds blotted out the sun, and rain pelted the sand, turning it into a slick mirror of gray. Elena ran for shelter beneath a large driftwood log, laughing despite herself. Liam appeared beside her, drenched but smiling. "This is wild," he said, shielding his face from the rain. But somehow perfect. They huddled together, watching the waves swell, foam curling like molten silver. The storm seemed alive, chaotic, yet mesmerizing. You know, Liam said softly, sometimes storms are necessary. They reshape the beach, just as challenges reshape us. Elena nodded, her hair plastered to her face. She felt the storm wash away more than sand. It washed away her lingering doubts, her hesitations, and the fear that had chained her creativity. After the rain, the clouds parted, revealing a sky so clear and luminous that it almost hurt to look at. Rainbows arched across the horizon. Elena felt a sudden surge of gratitude, not just for the storm, but for the calm, for Liam's companionship, for the infinite beauty of the shoreline that had welcomed her broken heart. On the final morning of her stay, the beach was serene, bathed in golden sunlight. The sand reflected the sky in a delicate sheen, and the tide whispered softly at the shore. Elena walked barefoot, sketchbook in hand, tracing the footprints and patterns that had led her to so many discoveries. She paused to look back at the small cabin, a place that had become both sanctuary and studio, teacher and mirror. Liam joined her once more. "Will you come back?" he asked, smiling. "I will," she said, gazing at the horizon where sand met sky. "And next time, I'll bring more than sketches. I'll bring my heart fully." They stood together in silence, letting the waves wash over their feet. Elena realized that the shore had taught her something profound. Life, like the beach, is a balance between permanence and change, between holding on and letting go. As they walked back along the golden sand, the footprints they left behind glistened briefly, then were erased by the gentle waves, a reminder that moments of beauty and growth are fleeting, yet eternal in memory.